here are your answers that you need to check. If you get one wrong, just circle it and retry. Okay, circle it, and retry, or try to understand what was going on, either by drawing a picture or on a number line. Okay. All right, here we go. So A1, it says -5 plus 7. As you can see here, we've got a negative and a positive number. And when you have different signs, those are different because one's negative, one's positive. When you have different signs, you have to set up a subtraction problem, which I have set up in the bottom corner. All right, what you do is you find the absolute value of 7 and the absolute value of -5, and you put them in your subtraction problem. So that's 7, that's 5, because absolute value is always positive. Put the bigger number on top when you're doing your subtraction, and you get 2. Well, is it a positive 2 or a negative 2? Well, there were -5 and there were positive 7. Which one's bigger, 5 or 7? 7, so that's a positive 2. All right. Here we've got a negative and a negative. We've got -15 plus -6. Well, let's just say that those negative signs weren't there, and it was positive 15 plus 6. What would you do? You would just add it. Okay? Well, that's the same thing we're going to do with the negatives. Okay? We're just going to add it. Take the absolute value of 15, -15. Take the absolute value of -6. And you've got 15 plus 6, which is 21. We know that. Now, if you look, they were both negative. Well, what happened when they were both positive? It was positive 21, right? Well, when they're both negative, it just becomes a bigger negative. So -21 is the answer. Okay? So you've got positive 2, -21. Now this one we've got different signs as well, so I set up my subtraction problem. Absolute value of 18 is 18. Absolute value of -6 is 6. So we put the bigger number on top. 18 minus 6 is 12. Okay, which one is bigger, -6 or positive 18? Positive 18, so that's a positive 12. All right, here again, we've got a negative and a positive. Those are different signs, so I set up my subtraction problem in the bottom right. Okay, we've got 20, find the absolute value of -20, absolute value of 9. Remember, absolute value is always positive. Put the bigger number on top in our subtraction. 20 minus 9 is 11, but the 20 was bigger than the 9, so it's a -11. You keep the sign of the bigger number. All right. Okay, this is where we need to know, add the opposite. Okay, when you see subtraction, I tell you subtraction's a lie so that whenever you see it, you add the opposite. And the reason why is because if I take 8 and I subtract -5, it's the same thing as adding 5. Okay? I'll show you on the next one what I mean by that, okay? So here's what we've got. We've got add the opposite. So I change this subtraction to addition. And what's the opposite of -5? Positive 5. So what we've got here is positive 8 plus positive 5. They're both positive, so if they're both positive, you just straight up add. 8 plus 5 is 13. And since they were both positive, my answer is positive here. That's when you're adding, okay? All right, so here we've got a better example. We've got -10 minus 7, okay? Well, we've got a -10, right? And we need to add the opposite when we see subtraction. It's only when you see subtraction that you add. The opposite of positive 7 is -7. So now we've got -10 plus -7. We've got a negative and a negative. And if they're both the same, you just straight up add. Take the absolute value of 10. -10 is 10. take the absolute value of negative 7 is 7. 10 plus 7 is 17. But since they are both negative, we're going to keep the negative sign. So negative 17. So we've got positive 13, negative 17. Then we've got add the opposite. You see subtraction, so you have to add the opposite. Add the opposite of 8. Negative 8 is positive 8. So what we've got here is we've got negative 7 plus positive 8. So we set up a subtraction since they are different signs. We've got a negative and a positive. So we set up our subtraction, the absolute value of 8, the absolute value of negative 7, put the bigger number on top, and you get 1. And since 8 was the bigger number and it was positive, it is a positive 1. All right, add the opposite. When you see subtraction, you add the opposite. So when we add the opposite, we've got negative 12 plus the opposite of positive 6 is negative 6. So negative 12 plus negative 6. They're both negative, so this we know we're just going to straight up add. So we get the absolute value of negative 12, which is 12. The absolute value of negative 6, which is 6. 12 plus 6 is 18. And we keep the sign, which they were both negative, so we keep the sign, negative 18. Okay. All right, here's where we get into the word problems. We've got, when Tabitha woke up in the morning, the temperature was negative 5 degrees, so I put that, negative 5 degrees. By noon, the temperature was 23 degrees. How many degrees warmer was it at noon? So here's what we've got. We've got this number line. We've got 0 here. We've got negative 5 here. We've got 23 here. Well, what it's asking is how much warmer was it? So how did I go from negative 5 to positive 23? Well, to go from negative 5 to 0, I went 5 units to the right. To go from 0 to 23, I went 23 units to the right. Well, when I go to the right, I know it's positive, right? So we are just taking those 5 units and adding them to the 23 units to get 28 degrees. But the math behind it is this. 23 minus negative 5. Remember, when you see subtraction, you add the opposite. So it's 23 plus the opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. So there's the math behind it. That's how you get it. Okay? All right, let's look at the next one. All right, this one says it is negative 21 degrees in Anchorage, Alaska, and 82 degrees Fahrenheit in Dallas, Texas. What is the difference between the temperature in Dallas and the temperature in Anchorage? Okay, so difference means to subtract. Okay, you can see my little subtraction here. So difference means to subtract. Well, again, we've got on a number line, we've got negative 21 over here. Say here's 0. We've got positive 82 here. All right? From negative 21 to 0 is 21 units away from 0 to the right. From 0 to 82 is 82 units to the right. So all you're doing is you're adding those two together. Well, the math way is 82 minus negative 21. Remember, add the opposite. So it's 82. Whenever you see subtraction, you add. The opposite of 21 is positive 21. The opposite of negative 21 is positive 21. So you figure that out, and you get 103. From here to here is 103. Okay? All right, the next one, Michael owes his dad $56. Okay, he owes him $56. And he paid, oops, not 52, 56. And he paid 22. So if he paid it, you just subtract it from the $56. Okay? How much does he owe him now? $34. In a lot of cases, you might see that it says negative 34, meaning you owe somebody money. But in this case, it's just asking how much he owes. It's not saying a negative number in this case. He still owes $34. All right, so I already drew the picture for this one. He gains 21, so we know it's a positive in the right direction. He loses 6, so that makes it a negative. 21 minus 6. Really, you could probably already do this, but let's stay consistent. 21, add the opposite, okay? And they both will equal 15. Okay? You basically just do the subtraction of 21 and 6. All right, on this one, they have that nice little bubble sheet. I want you to make sure that you put your zeros on this side of the decimal, the 15 here, and then bubble the numbers that are below it. And this is a positive number, so make sure you bubble the positive little bubble, okay? All right. Now to get into what you're going to learn today. So now that we have adding and subtracting down, what you're going to learn today is you're going to learn about multiplying and dividing, okay? And the best part about multiplying and dividing is there's the same rules for multiplying and dividing. I'm going to show you some diagrams or models of multiplying and dividing, but the rules are probably going to be the best for you in this case. All right, so we've got what I call the multiplication and division triangle. Okay, we've got a negative, and a positive at the top. Okay? How this multiplication triangle works is whenever you're multiplying, or dividing, negative 3 divided by negative 3. You can use this multiplication division triangle. Okay? You take the two signs. You've got a negative 3 and a negative 3. So you say negative and a negative. Well, a negative and a negative equal what's left? The positive. Okay, so a negative times a negative is a positive, and in this case, 9. A negative, that's a division sign, if you can't tell. A negative 3 divided by a negative 3 is going to be a positive, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay? So let's look at this one more time. Okay? Let me redraw my nice triangle. Okay, so let's see. On this next one, we've got negative 2 times 5. Okay? And let's just do 10, negative 10 divided by 5. Okay? In these two cases, we have a positive and a negative, right? We've got a negative 2, positive 5. A negative 10, positive 5. So when you have a positive and a negative, your answer is going to be negative. What I like to do is I like to figure out if it's going to be positive or negative and write it off to the side. So then you just have to do 2 times 5 is 10. So we've got negative 10 for our answer. Negative 10 divided by 5 is 2. So we've got negative 2 for our answer. Okay. This triangle helps you determine when you're multiplying or dividing if it's negative or positive. Okay. If it's negative or positive. Let me show you what I mean and how this actually works, okay, on a number line. Okay, say I'm at 0 here, and say we've got negative 2 times 3. Well, we know that negative 2, if I was to plot that, goes to the left. So what you would do is you would multiply. There's a negative 2. There's a negative 2. There's a negative 2. See how it went 3 times? So that is what negative 2 3 times would look like. Well, clearly there's some nice little hash marks here to show you on your number line. So there's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. Okay? So the answer to this is negative 6. Remember the triangle. We've got a negative and a negative and a positive. And in this case, we've got a positive 3 and a negative 2. So we know our answer will be negative. And 3 times 2 is 6. So your answer is negative 6. Okay, there's a diagram with the number line. Then you've got a diagram with counters. Say we've got negative, 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 negative. I'm just going to use that same exact negative 2 times 3. If you see something that looks like this, they're grouped in negative 2s, right? That's going to be negative 2. Oh, not negative 3, sorry. Negative 2. That's going to be negative 2. You can see the 2 negative counters. That's going to be negative 2. And how many times did you do negative 2? 3 times. Okay? So I showed you with some counters, I showed you with a number line, and then I showed you with the rule. Okay? Multiplying and dividing with counters is a little bit trickier than adding and subtracting. So the rule helps you out a whole lot in this case. Alright, so you've checked your answers over adding and subtracting straight up and with word problems. You've now been shown how to multiply and divide with the rule. Remember your triangle. This will help you out a lot. Okay, multiplying and dividing. They have the same exact rule in that a negative times a negative is a positive. Oops. A positive times a negative is a negative. Okay, we already know what a positive times a positive is because we've been doing that our entire school year, or school, as long as you've been in school. So just know that your rule is if you have the different signs, or a positive and a negative, your answer will end up being a negative when you're multiplying and dividing. This is only for multiplying and dividing. Don't get it confused with your adding and subtracting stuff, okay? Alright, what you're going to do is after you finish this video, I've got some questions put on a slides for you, so please just look at those questions and answer them.